Welcome to Prime Space, a Prime Coaching Academy podcast with your host, Elias Scultori. Coaches, I have another guest here today, and it's a very dear guest, Patricia Reach. And Patricia is an MCC coach. And hello, Patricia.
Good morning, Elias.
Hello, it's so good to have you here. I have to say why Patricia is a special guest for me. All my guests are special, but Patricia has a specialty around that, a specific specialty. Patricia and I were together working in our MCC together, and we helped each other throughout that process. And it was such a joy to work with her and to get to know Patricia and how Patricia sees the world. I'm going to read for you Patricia's bio so that you get a little glimpse of Patricia. Patricia describes herself as an edge walker, crossing cultural boundaries, responding to global crises, and exploring the energetic and quantum dimensions of coaching. She walks between the physical and non-physical, the seen and unseen, conventional and visionary, always oriented toward what is emerging. While living in Islamabad, Pakistan, she experienced the impact of Al Qaeda's 1998 bombings of the U.S. Embassy in East Africa, as well as the 9/11 attacks while living in Amman, Jordan. After this tumult, she relocated to Zurich, Switzerland, where she began coach training in 2003. Patricia coaches now U.S. government employees across all levels and agencies, as well as private sector and international clients. What most inspires her is the evolution of human consciousness. Patricia believes energy is the new edge in coaching. And that coaching is one of the most powerful contributions to this evolution. Her work is grounded in continuous learning and a deep respect for what unfolds in each moment. Wow, Patricia, I'm humbled when I read all of these historical moments and you living in that moment. So thank you so much. I'm so excited about you sharing your experience here with us. We start your bio by talking about edge walker. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think it was said, Elias, in what you read, but it was a term that came to me when I was in Switzerland. The previous events of living in Pakistan and Jordan were experiences where I walked between the seen and the unseen, physical and non-physical, walking between cultures, languages, the experience in the chaos that I experienced during the embassy bombings, living in Pakistan when after the embassy bombings, the U.S. retaliated across Pakistani airspace with the intention of targeting bin Laden. We were Americans living in Pakistan, and there was fear of retaliation. I witnessed the stories, the narratives, the assumptions, the fear, the political unrest, and the collective confusion. And there was something within me. There was a steadiness and a calm that I experienced. It was a detachment, but it wasn't that I wasn't aware of what was going on. But I realized that there was another option. There was another choice, that reactivity didn't need to be a choice. So I anchored myself in myself to be there for my family, myself, community, faculty. Well, it was a quality of being that then I experienced in Jordan, living there during 9/11. And again, I was acutely aware of being a guest, as we are as expats in other countries, and a U.S. passport holder. the weight of the global attention was over the Middle East, where we lived. We all have witnessed that, and we all have experienced. I'm sure you were in New York at that time, Elias, and I was experiencing it from abroad. So there was a paradox of distance and proximity. I felt the need or the pull or the drive to remain steady. When I moved to Switzerland is actually when I began coach training, and kind of all this came together. And, I realized, wow, the liminal space between a culture, it was a huge transition in identity. I was grateful to begin coach training because I was able to pull everything together.
I remember clearly when I was in New York and 9/11 happened, and I was seeing the towers catching fire. And I remember very clearly thinking to myself, wow, I am right now witnessing a historical moment. Also, to notice the chaos that was in the moment, but also how the community, I remember very clearly how the community chose to come together and to remain steady and to help each other and do what needed to be done in that moment. So there was a little glimpse, not as intense as you, but there was a little glimpse of that chaos. You were present to global chaos. And you were able in that moment to make that choice to find the energy of coherence within you. How do you think that that influenced you to move into coaching, and even now when you're coaching your leaders?
When I arrived in Switzerland, I knew there was more to this. I knew there was more to this state of being, and I wanted to work with people in this domain because I realized the coherency is an energy. It's generative, and it impacts the people around us, right? When we coach, we've all witnessed how even in a family, one person changes and, pulls the whole family along. Leaders as well, a leader's energy and how they lead with emotional regulation, clarity and communication, with authenticity. The team mirrors that energy. Coaching just helped me to maybe expand. Maybe it was more expansive, and it helped me to dive into more of this, not only helping people, the greater good, and moving evolution, because it all is about evolution. On some level, I think it was just an intention of what I wanted to do.
What I love about your experience is because, yes, these are global, chaotic moments. It seems that he gave you the sensitivity to understand this idea, this movement from chaos to coherence, from scatteredness to focus, from noise to sound, right? Regardless of the scale, there is a sensitivity in you about this dichotomy.
Yeah. And it's a practice. Coherency is a practice.
How do we move from chaos to coherence?
Well, it's choice and it's a practice, and how we choose to practice coherency. It's an internal state of being where we are aligned with our values, our principles. And are we all there all the time? Of course not. But we need to be able to recalibrate to that state of being when we are thrown off. How do we practice it? Whatever it means to you. There is an insane amount of information that's coming to us. We do not have the space to process it.
And this is what I believe about coaching, because we are providing the space for our clients to make that choice.
To think January 2nd, 2025 was absolutely insane. And do I stay? Do I go? my family, my future, the civil service people feeling undervalued. That's chaos. Different than global, but it was chaos. And the world, we were all in chaos, and there still is chaos.
Using the January 25 example that you just gave over here, your client comes to the session in chaos. What supports you as a coach to stand in the space of coherence and not get into the circle of doom with a client?
That is a great question. There's no other choice. We say hold the space, but what it is, it's coherency. It's just to stay grounded and anchored and centered. I remember driving in a bus in Pakistan to the airport, and the streets were quiet. I remember saying, well, I'd feel a little better if there were missiles overhead. They need to speak. They need to share where they're at and what's going on in the turmoil and whatever it means to them. And on the continuum of managers or GS16 or leaders, you'd have a manager show up that was very steady, or a leader that was very steady, very, very coherent, and they were just processing the movement from fear to forward movement. Because they're in fear, their team's in fear. What are the possibilities to go to future, to forward movement? And there are leaders that were, dysregulated and concerned about their own future. As a coach, you don't identify and you don't get grabbed. I wasn't grabbed by the political events. The political events were there. It's just like, do I have thoughts? Or do my thoughts have me? Did I experience the global crisis, or did the global crisis have me?
It seems to me it's a sense of detachment. It's a skill to detach from what is happening to me, and me identifying with what is happening. Because you experience such an enormous amount of chaos, somehow you were able to notice the distinction between what was happening inside of you and what was happening outside of you. And that gave you the choice to hold to that coherence that was internal inside of you. Regardless of the level of chaos, if it is the bombing of an embassy, or if it's that the milk spilled as we were boiling the milk, or whatever it is, the level of chaos, we have a choice in that moment. And for us to be able to support our clients, we need to bring a level of coherence within us so that they can also see that there is a choice for them and be able to separate the situation from what is happening inside of them or what is available to them.
In order to move them to a new future possibility.
One of the questions I have here for you, Patricia, what becomes possible when coherence is intentional?
I mean, it's huge. A new future becomes possible. How to move them out of wherever they are, a situation, a problem, to maybe a higher intelligence. This is the generative impact of coaching. It's the evolution of consciousness. I think Amy talks about that.
With all that said, what is the core message of coaching for you?
Movement. It's momentum. Moving clients from what's holding them back or hesitation. Because the movement is the evolution. The movement is growth. The movement is forward action.
I have one more question for you, Patricia. What would you say to coaches when they are in the middle of a coaching conversation and they are experiencing the client's chaos? What do we do?
Pause, breathe, ground, listen, create space. Let them process it.
How do I encounter coherence in that moment?
First step is to be aware that self-awareness that I, as a coach, I am being hijacked by their chaos. And then to recalibrate.
Well, another thing that comes up for me is remember that we have a choice.
Yeah.
Regardless of the chaos. And here is you having these extreme experience of chaos, and you made a choice right there. And I love these examples because if you were able to make a choice in the middle of an embassy bombing, we as a country, if we were able to make a choice when 9/11 happened and we were able to stay still and help each other, that moment when we are with our clients and there is the chaos of our clients, or that moment that the milk spilled right in front of us in our own lives, there is a choice and we can make a choice. Are we going to the energy of chaos or are we going to the energy of coherence?
So true. And there's an awareness that has to happen to make the choice. We have to be aware that we have a choice.
Patricia, it's a joy to partner with you, and it's a joy to have these conversations with you every time we come together. I always learn from you, and I am inspired by the energy that you put in the world. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation with you, Elias.
Coaches, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And I will see you next time. Take good care.